Welcome to the Racing Roots with Hamm, where every Monday night at 7:30 we have a new guest to talk about their roots and their path into the racing world. And tonight, my special guest is Billy Race. And yes, that is his real name.
Yeah, it's a funny story about that. When I first got interviewed by the King, so I worked for the Petties for about 7 years, 8 years. The King did his typical pull his glasses down a little bit. He says, "Is that your real name?" I said, "Yes, sir, it sure is." So it's kind of funny introduction to NASCAR for sure.
Well, that's one of the coolest names that you could have, I would say, to be, especially to work in racing. It's almost like you were destined to be in the race.
It's funny you say that. It's because, I look at where I grew up. I grew up in Western New York, and a small town called Jamestown. Went to Faulkner High School. And where I'm from, the last name Race was really associated to my dad, who was a well-known football coach up there.
Okay.
Right? So he was, anytime you said race in Western New York, it was affiliated to football. I grew up going to a small dirt track since I was little, State Line Speedway. And I grew up watching late model drivers. Right now, Chubb Frank, who you've probably heard of, is from up that way. Dickie Barton were some of the guys that I loved to go see every Saturday night. But then I came down south. And yeah, it took a different meaning pretty quickly when I got into this world of racing.
Yeah, sure. So tell us a little bit about how you got started into your first job in racing, let's say.
So like I said, I have always loved I played with little race cars. My favorite driver was Harry Gant, right?
Yeah.
And of course Richard Petty and all those guys were the guys that I had all their cars, right? So I always had a love for some sort of racing. But I didn't really have a passion for NASCAR per se. As I got older, I moved to North Carolina to be a baseball coach at Campbell University.
Oh, okay.
In 1997 or 98. And then it kind of took over from there. And then after a couple different crazy jobs, one at a dealership, I got to know a guy who worked for the Petties. He kept on bringing Austin Petty's car in because Austin kept on doing stuff, right?
Yes, I remember Austin.
Austin was great. Yeah. And so he kept on bringing Austin's Volkswagen Bug in to the dealership, and I got to talking to him, and he goes, "Hey, we have a position open in the marketing department and as an account rep for sponsors. Would you be interested?" I was like, "Man, I don't know, but here's my resume." Well, going through so many different things, and I got a call from them. I went down and interviewed, and then went back home to New York or something for a couple of days and spent time with my dad and mom. And next thing I know, I got a call like, "Yeah, you're hired," right? So, but the interview process was kind of intimidating, right? You go in, have never had any kind of racing experience at all, right? Didn't have any sponsorship, acquisitions experience. But then you go into a room and get interviewed by Richard Petty, who and talk about intimidation, right?
You've known him your whole life, but he hasn't known you.
Right,
That's the way I always felt too.
And that's what it's funny. But from that day, I literally felt like part of the family, right? The family, that the Petty organization, even to this day, embrace you, right? And there's so many different pieces of that Petty world, right? You've got at the time Petty Enterprises, right? And then you have just becoming Victory Junction, which was a lot of fun to be part of with Kyle and Patty at the time. Yeah. So it was a lot of fun to be a part of all of those things with them. But then I got into racing, and I kind of started out as just a sponsorship guy on the 45 team and working with Kyle and the entire team, marketing department. And then it branched off kind of later as we tried to kind of expand Kyle more, as we knew Kyle's career in racing was going to come to an end at some point, right?
Right.
And what's the next best thing? Kyle's a great talker. He's amazing in front of the camera. He's amazing. All the sponsors loved him, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And we transitioned to Turner Broadcasting, and for 6 races after Benny passed. So it was a lot of fun to be part of that process with Kyle.
I really enjoy his commentating on TV. I've never, and I'll go on Twitter and I'll see, they're always going to have haters, of course.
Sure, always.
And I'll see people making comments. I'm like, no, Kyle is actually really good. Yeah. He's got a lot of common sense in his broadcasting stuff. So
he really does. He's Kyle's real when it comes to broadcasting because he doesn't get up there and boast about what he's done.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, he still won 8 races. He owned Rockingham, you know, as far as how fast he was there when he was with Sabco.
Yep.
So Kyle has a lot of experience, but, you know, a lot of change in Kyle's life and probably changed how he approached racing, right? After Adam's accident, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah, absolutely,
you know?
yeah. And then he started Victory Junction,
Sure.
which made it into a positive for what it, you know, it could be.
Well, he's taken Victory Junction, and don't forget about the Kyle Petty charity ride he does every year.
Yes.
That in itself, what Morgan does with that particular thing, you know, the logistics that are involved with that is amazing, and how they organize it across country. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, I know, right? She's been, I know last time I saw him was up at Tilly Harley Davidson, and I went by just to see them mostly, and then they had to get going, but they had all this stuff going on to get that, and she's talking about in her house had all these boxes that had come in for that and everything else. I remember the very first one that he come back to whenever he came back from across the country, he was at the Sandwich Construction Company, and we were there. I'm pretty sure Beer Man was there.
Yeah.
Scott Treviston, who is watching right now.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah. And Paul Rodriguez and Rachel and Linda and Jana, Scott's wife, and Mike Bear, Dickie Dennis, who was the infamous fence climber at Richmond in 2014.
No way. Yeah.
Yes, he tunes in.
It's funny. I think that particular instance, that situation,
Carolyn Troutman.
one of his relatives worked at the hotel in Richmond that we were staying at that night.
Yeah.
And she goes, you know, that guy that climbed the fence, that was my uncle or something.
Oh,
and
really?
I was like, what?
All right, Dickie, do you know who that is?
I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what she said.
You know, he's a legend, so everybody claims to be. He's my brother. Also Brett Troutman's tuned in, and Chad Hyder's up in Ohio. He does a little bit of that e-racing online stuff.
Huge.
Yeah.
That stuff's huge right now.
It is, man. And Janet Trevison says, hello, everybody. Hope y'all are doing well. Hope you are too. Hi, everyone, Carolyn. So we have Billy Race on with us today, and we may actually have a surprise phone call, but I'm going to keep that on the DL right now because it may or may not happen because the person is very busy, you know, like a lot of us are these days.
Yep, that's for sure.
But I worked with Kyle whenever Adam would come around and hang out, and, you know, he was like 13, I think, and then he was 15.
Right.
And he would, you know, he's just very humble. He would ask me, so how do you like being on the pit crew? You know, like, what got you started in this? How do you like being a jackman? And I looked at him and I was like, well, how do you like being the grandson of the king?
Right. Right. And you know what's funny is, unfortunately, I never got to meet Adam. Right. But from being a part of Kyle's life and being a part of Adam and Montgomery League, and then of course the camp, I learned so much about Adam. I felt like I knew him. Right.
Yes.
And then the way they embrace you, and then listen, I've been on plane rides and on different things with all the Petties, and you hear stories, right? And that's how I felt like I got to know Adam, right? And there's no telling what would have happened if Adam was still around. But I tell you what, Kyle loved that kid, man. Kyle, you know, he just loved Adam. He loves all of his kids, of course.
Yeah.
And that was tragic, unfortunately.
I saw Patty right after we were at Dover, and I went over to their pit box and talked to her, and she was saying how basically her advice was to always tell your kids that you love them.
Yeah.
And she said that, and they did that. So, you know, that was very cool. What's up, Dawn Clark? I asked her to come here tonight, but she had some type of a meeting. She's on a Zoom meeting right now.
Oh,
actually.
I gotcha.
Yes. And do you remember Bob Patterson? He used to go to the track and with Sabco. He says, hey, Dave and Trev, just lurking in the background.
You know, Sabco, I tell you, I think the Sabco days, well, obviously before me, but man, Kyle was strong during the Sabco days. And it's funny because you'll always run into people around, like if I was doing an appearance with Kyle somewhere and you'd hear someone that was involved with Sabco at some point, and there's some stories that you can't tell during those times, right? You know,
and Gary Nelson and Pemberton's.
Kyle's got some great stories in himself where you know, they would drive across country and race at Riverside and all these different places. And there were times where Kyle at 13 was probably driving the hauler, you know, and probably obviously illegally, but still pretty funny to hear him say, "Oh, these guys were falling asleep in the back, and I'm cruising down the road with this hauler and car behind me."
Yeah, he's told me about driving the family car down to the racetrack in Charlotte, down right near the airport, which is where I lived, and I grew up in that area and passed by there all the time, but it was like a Allison's car lot or truck storage or something like that. And he said there was a track right there, and we drove the family car down there, and then we had to drive it back home. Maybe someday I can get him to tell that story.
Yeah.
But I know he's got some good stories. He's
oh man, I think that's what makes Kyle a great broadcaster too. Is he's so good about telling the story, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you know, I thought it was great what Darlington did. They had an Earnhardt, Jarrett, and Petty in the booth for the throwback race earlier this year, which was pretty awesome. And I love Kyle in the booth. I think he's great behind the microphone, and that whole crowd does a good job at NBC and Fox.
One of the best cars, the paint scheme, one of my all-time favorite was that Meliolo car. Yeah. It's beautiful. Yeah. Contrasting colors.
For sure.
And that and the Haviland car, the 28. Yep. That was a good one too.
It's funny that All-Star race, you know, you look back at the All-Star race and I think Kyle may have lifted. He could probably tell us a little bit about that, but that race is always brought up every All-Star race during the year between Davey and Kyle. That race always comes up every year.
I was there. I was sitting on the back stretch, and I was at the very top row. And this is when I was aspiring to get into NASCAR. Yeah. I was like, I'm going to do everything I can. Worked at a dealership, you know, went to college at Central Piedmont in Charlotte, and that was my dream and my goal. So we were sitting up there, and I just remember seeing the hood flying and the sparks flying. And at that point, I didn't really know who won the race, you know, and then I remember the helicopter coming in, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we'd had quite a few beers at that point too.
For sure.
But man, what a great time that night was. I had my dad and two of my neighbors, and I gotten tickets when I worked at dealership, I guess.
Yeah.
Man, I would love those one hot nights. You know, when they did the night race, I would always go to the day race too.
Yep.
And the year before that, Davey Allison like swept that day race. You know, so.
And then I just saw today they're moving the All-Star race to Texas.
Oh, okay. Yep. So they're kind of moving it around. It sounds like.
Yeah.
What was the first race you went to, NASCAR race?
The first race I went to, it was before I was working. I had worked for a oil company out of Asheboro, North Carolina, and they gave us tickets to the 76 suite, and it was at Darlington. Darlington was my first NASCAR race in person, and Bobby Labonte won it in a rain-shortened race.
Do you remember what year that was?
Was that 2000?
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to think if I was there.
It was either 2000 Darlington. Or 99.
Okay.
Maybe 99.
Yeah. I was thinking I was a jackman for Sterling in 99, and in 2000, I'd had shoulder surgery and all this stuff. So they got Rick Reeling come in and was jacking, and then he hurt his knee. So they're like, "Hey, can you come and jack again?" So I remember going and grabbing one of those short sleeve shirts out of the closet and going out and jacking for Sterling. And it was at Darlington was one of the races, but I don't remember the outcome or whatever. It may have been a rain.
Yeah, Bobby won
shortened, and
I don't know if that might have been Bobby's last win. I don't know.
Oh, okay, yeah. Chad Hyder says I enjoy his Coffee with Kyle segments.
Yeah.
And Kyle's a great story. Rachel says Kyle is a great story. Has some cool YouTube videos. What's up, Suzette? And Dickie Dennis says, so he didn't answer the question about the cousin yet. I'm just kind of curious about that.
Yeah.
He said, I like him too, and I even heard him sing. You have ever heard him sing.
Kyle's a great singer.
Yes,
great songwriter, great singer.
Yeah. So Kyle, when I first met him, we were so I worked in the machine shop at Sabco in the old building down off of Orr Road, I guess it was.
Yep.
And I'm sitting there in the machine shop, working out a little bit. And then he comes in, and he mostly just come in and did some talking. Right. I think he was supposed to work out, but he just come in. And he gave me one of his cassette tapes back then.
Yeah.
And I remember playing that Old King Richard.
King Richard,
yes. And I loved that song. I played it over and over and over. So Scott Trevison, so he always asks people to tell their funniest Sterling Marlin stories, but he's saying to tell your funniest Stephen Moffat stories.
Man, I don't know if I have a funny Stephen Moffat story, because every time we're at the racetrack or I was around Stephen, he was always running around taking care of people, right? So he was always on point and trying to be, just taking care of people. So I was probably on the other side taking care of Kyle while Stephen was taking care of sponsors or something. So I don't have anything funny about Stephen.
It was pretty serious stuff there.
Yeah. Well, at the time, sponsors were coming out of the woodworks and everyone was sponsoring cars. Right.
Yeah.
And it was fun and crazy. I do have, and Kyle, if if he can chime in here at some point, but the funniest petty experience I've ever had with the petties was we were in Indianapolis at St. Elmo's, right? Mm-hmm. And the king would never just sit. And Linda was with us, and I think Brian Moffitt, Kyle wasn't with us that night. But we went to St. Elmo's and sat in the regular population area, and we're eating, and the manager comes over and goes, "Excuse me, Mr. Petty, but Peyton Manning is upstairs in the VIP room and would like for you to come say hi."
Mm-hmm. Wow. Very cool.
And the king did his typical, pulled his glasses down, middle finger, and said, "Son, how many championships did Peyton Manning win?" And at the time, he hadn't won any.
All right.
And the manager says, "Well, none, sir." He goes, "I've won 7. Tell him to come see me." And he came back down and said hi.
That's right. Yes. Yes. So Scott said, if you see him, tell him, duh, he'll know what you mean.
For sure.
Yeah. And Dickie says, I cannot wait to hear Hamm read Scott's comment. I'm thinking it's no Sterling Marlin request. Yeah. That's what, like I told you, he's always asking for a Sterling.
I have a funny story through Kyle about Sterling.
Oh, really?
And so
I'm sure Scott will want to hear that.
I think they wrecked in Indianapolis. Kyle hit the wall a couple times, got knocked out.
I think 96?
He might have broke his. I think 96. Kyle broke his femur on that.
Yeah.
So
he did.
They pull Kyle out of the car, and Sterling's sitting over there sitting on the wall, and they keep on putting Kyle on a stretcher,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And they lift him up about 8 inches, and Kyle would scream like crazy, have to drop him real fast.
Oh.
And then they pick him up 8 inches, drop him real fast. And Sterling walked over and goes, "Hey, if you stop stepping on his ponytail, he might not scream that loud."
Yes. That's right. Yes.
And Kyle tells it way better than I do. Kyle's a way better storyteller than I, but that was, Kyle tells that story a lot. Kyle was part of the, at the time, a speakers bureau, and he would tell that story kind of as an icebreaker for the thousands of people he was talking to. So it was pretty good story.
It always helps if you can get the people laughing first.
For sure.
Breaks the ice. But yeah, I remember hearing that story.
Yeah.
Probably from Kyle, I'm sure.
And there's some Sterling Marlin stories that we all can't tell. We all know that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's plenty of those.
Yeah, Sterling was a mess. Bob Patterson says 2000, the wettest I ever got at a track. I guess that would have been the Darlington race.
Yeah.
I know the wettest I ever got. I think I was at Daytona because I was going to stay down there and drive over to go to Orlando to meet my family to go to Disney. But I remember my shoes being so full of water when I was walking. I was just like slosh, slosh, slosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Dickie Dennis says she is my daughter.
No, that is great. That's great.
How about that? Yeah, man. Oh, and Stephen Moffitt, I remember him. I haven't seen him in probably, 20-something years.
Yeah.
And 24 maybe. And but we were always we were good friends and hung out together a lot.
Yeah, he's done. So Stephen, it's like, so of course, Brian Moffitt, Stephen's nephew, Brian Moffitt's son, Thad,
yes.
Stephen's nephew, is now racing in ARCA World, right? And he's doing actually pretty well. He's got some great sponsors through Safety Clean and groups like that. But Stephen is kind of working the entire umbrella of the Petty group now, to my understanding. He has Petty's Garage, which they're restoring and doing resto fits and all these different things with cars, in the actual original shop that I worked at on Branson Mill Road in Randleman. So they're building some really cool hot rods. If you ever get a chance, you got to go up there and check out what they're doing. They're doing some amazing things.
Definitely.
They have a bunch of SEMA builds there. And then he's probably doing stuff for camp. He's doing stuff for Thad. He's doing stuff for the race team. So he's probably stretched pretty thin for what they have him doing, for sure.
Well, I'll have to get his number from you, and so maybe I can give him a call and go up there sometime.
For sure.
I really would like to do that. Now that I'm out of racing, I can kind of just go and do stuff,
Right.
Whatever. I'm glad you said that about Thad, because I meant to mention that earlier too. And he was racing in the I was going to say the Busch series, but he was racing in the Xfinity series, wasn't he?
I don't know if Thad
or the truck series.
I don't know if he's gotten an Xfinity or truck start yet.
Okay.
I know he's done. He was working late model and has done a number of ARCA races and has done really well. I think he's racing for the Gilliland Crosley group.
Okay.
Ford, I believe it is.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, they're like every race car driver, they're in the process of looking for funds to do more racing, right?
Okay. Yep.
And Thad, I remember Thad when I was working in at the shop in Randleman. Thad and his brother would always come in and take everybody's candy, and if Thad was just a short little guy, right, red-haired guy, just aggravate everyone running around. Now he's this awesome kid. He's doing commercials, just like he literally has the same demeanor as his granddad, which is really cool. So
Yeah.
it's good to see them prosper and do well. But he's making up the ranks in the ARCA world for sure.
Yeah, very cool. That's pretty much the way Adam was. He always reminded me of his grandfather. Very, very humble and sort of quiet, but he always had that big smile. You know, very down to earth. And we got the oh my goodness. Okay, that's enough, y'all. We got some. All right, so Rachel's asking a question. She says, "Does Billy have anything to share about Victory Junction, such as the park itself, or anything about the children that it helps?"
Yeah, so Victory Junction is a camp that I'm not sure how many weeks, it may have changed over the years, but it sees chronically ill children from all over the country and all over the world is my understanding. But they raise money through the Calvary Charity Ride. They have different functions throughout the year. Bubba Wallace has done a good job of helping promote them as well this year. But if you ever have a chance, go, I think it's victoryjunction.org. I'm not sure you may want to double check that, but they see kids from anywhere from age, I think it's 6 to 16, and of all chronic, like anything from like sickle cell anemia to diabetes, the various types of cancer that come in. And it's really a magical place to where kids can go there and just simply be kids, right? And they can, it's really magical to see a 6-year-old talk to a 16-year-old that has the same chronic illness, and the 16-year-old can literally help that 6-year-old, kind of give them a projected path of what they're about to go through in the next 10 years, right?
Right, yes.
And to see that happen, and then, you know, they have NAS Carnival nights on Tuesday nights, and race teams come and they hang out and they play games and get pies in the face. But Victory Junction Gang Camp literally helps kids become kids again. Like, just because we all know that kid that's that's been in our classroom that maybe have an issue, or may have diabetes, or may have had cancer. My daughter has this little kid, Devin, in her class now that is going through it, and they are always doing something to help him. But we've all had that kid that we can think of, right?
Oh, yeah.
Victory Junction helps these kids not be different, right? And
Right.
helps them be normal.
Yep.
And that's not only a really big help for the kids, but you think about the parents that go through that too, right? The parents see their kid being normal again, and it's amazing to see that transition of the parents being happy like that.
Yeah, so I went out there, Kyle, let's see, a couple of years ago, he had texted me, and I ended up going out with Rodney Childers, went out that same night, and they did like some pit stops, and the King was there, and it was just all these kids running around just having so much fun. You know, they got a big lake out there that I guess they can go fishing or whatever. They had the Krispy Kreme donuts, whatever, the bus thing out there that cooks the donuts, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Hot and Now right there on mobile. That was there, and so I did a little bit of a tour around, but just walking around and seeing the balloons, like tethered balloon rides, and they were giving ice cream,
everything.
Just like, it was just like a really good time. But it was the victoryjunction.org.
Yep.
You were right about that. That is where, and you can donate money there, of course. And it's a great cause. I mean, Krispy Kreme had actually donated that night. It was something like $300,000 or something. I mean, it was great.
And that may have come from a girl. I don't know if you know Susan Williams or not, but Susan works at Krispy Kreme now. She may have helped with that, but she was part of our marketing team when I was there in 2003 to 2010 or whatever it was, 11. But that may have happened then. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah,
Scott Trevison says, we support Victory Junction, and he says, who's going to drive the 43 next year?
Man.
Haven't heard that. I know Bubba's leaving, so.
We heard Chastain's taking the 42 today.
Yeah.
We heard that happened, right?
Yeah.
And there's so many different variables there, and you don't know who Bubba is taking with him on a sponsorship side. That's going to be a big deal, right? I don't think they're in a position where they can go out and get someone with no sponsorship that comes with them, right?
Right.
They've got to go get that.
Yep.
But I think they. I mean, Is Suarez that guy? Do they stay on that path? Maybe. Right. I don't know.
Maybe. I guess time will tell. We'll find out eventually. Before next season at some point.
Hopefully.
I mean, is it silly season yet? What is it?
This whole silly season since February.
Exactly. Yes. Rachel says, "Thank you, Billy. I'm so happy that Adam had a dream to start it, and the Petties for Phil to give the children great memories away from the medical facilities." Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks, Rachel. I think Adam's love came from that when he first visited Boggy Creek that Paul Newman had in Florida, and then Adam simply came back and said, "Hey, I want to do that here." Right. And it's amazing what it's become. Think about, that started in 2003 or 2, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
And think about all the kids they've helped in 18, 19 years. That's a lot of kids.
Yeah. Yes, I remember going out to Adam's, where he lived on the farm down there, in I think it was Finch Farm Road or something.
Finch Farm Road, yeah.
And he had his own nice little apartment looking deal out there. Him and Austin. Yeah. So, if y'all have any questions, go ahead and ask them now. I mean, we still got a good bit of time
fire
here.
Away, fire away. I can tell another really good Richard Petty story. It's kind of a clash of cultures. We had flown into Las Vegas for a Serta mattress appearance he had, and we landed, I think, Signature or Atlantic, one of those two. And we're sitting there, and Richard's deal when he gets to these FBOs is to go grab a bag of popcorn, right? And so I'm loading these bags into our car service, and Richard comes out with this bag of popcorn. Well, I also noticed behind us, this other plane landed behind us, and it was a jet black, much bigger plane than what Richard had. And a bunch of these guys get out, and they come rolling up, and it was Snoop Dogg.
Oh, wow.
Right? So you think about, the King and Snoop Dogg meeting, right? So I'm standing in this lobby.
He was on The Price is Right this morning. I don't know.
Snoop Dogg was?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I'm standing there, I'm watching these two cultures literally clash. Not clash in a bad way, but the Snoop Dogg knew exactly who he was. He walked right up and goes, "Hey, what's up, King? Good to see you, King." And the King's like, "Hey, buddy." And he's shaking his hand like he always does, right?
Yeah.
And I think the King may have signed something for him like he always did. So we get in the car, and we're on our way to the hotel. And the King, he always called me Willie. He goes, "Hey, Willie, who is that guy there?" I said, "That was Snoop Dogg." And he looked at me and goes, "Snoop Dogg?" I said, you know how you go by the King? Well, he goes by Snoop Dogg, right? That's kind of, I said, "He's a rapper. He's a well-known artist." He goes, oh, one of those deals. Yeah, I said, "Yeah." So it was funny to see those two kind of meet.
Oh, yeah. So how do you, I seen some pictures of you with Rutledge Wood from the, if y'all don't know Rutledge Wood, he's the Top Gear.
Yep.
I remember watching that show years ago.
So Rutledge Wood and I became friends, years ago. And it was, he was doing, I think the Speed Channel show on, like this, he was a stage guy, right? A hype guy type guy, right?
Yeah.
So I met him at like the San Francisco airport. We were flying out, and we struck up a conversation. And to this day, he's one of my very best friends. We talk literally a couple times a week. So he has evolved into this huge personality and he's built a brand that is so much more than just racing, right? You want to talk cars to somebody, that guy knows everything you can think about cars, right? So he's really busy at SEMA. So Rutledge and I became friends, and I started managing him for a while. So I managed him for 3 or 4 years, and on the business side, and we would get different deals for him here and there, and it was a lot of fun. Rutledge personality is amazing. He's the same person you see on TV that he is sitting in this right here. He's a great guy.
I always like watching him on TV because he was really funny and a happy type personality.
Always,
and that's what you want to surround yourself with. You want to be around people that bring you up and make you happy.
And that helped me. You know, when you're away from your wife, I've got a wife, Naomi, and my 2 kids, Cayenne and Breck. And they came into my life, and of course you want to come off the road, but when I was away from them, being around Rutledge always helped me on the road because he's that guy that could help bring me up all the time.
Sure.
But now he's got he's had The Floor is Lava on Netflix. And it was like the #1 show on Netflix for 10 weeks or something crazy. And now he's got this show on Netflix called American Barbecue.
Okay.
And it's a cooking show. He's also done a couple cooking shows, but he's broadened from NASCAR. He's doing so many different things. You see him working the Kentucky Derby, and they send him to the Olympics, and they send him because he's asked different questions of what your typical broadcast and track guys will ask. And I think even some of the NASCAR guys enjoy that about Rhett, because he asks questions that aren't necessarily, hey, how's your car?
Right.
He's asked, hey, tell me about, the crazy food that you posted about last night or something, right? Who knows, right?
Yes.
It's always different.
Yeah.
But he's a great guy. Another guy that I could probably get him to call in on your show one night and bust chops.
Mm-hmm.
He's
Oh yeah,
great.
that would be great, man, for sure. And so just, hey, if he lives near here, have him come on over.
I should.
He's probably pretty busy with the guys that do that kind of stuff, and they're always having to go film somewhere and do all this. And then so when they're home, they probably want to stay home.
Yep.
It's kind of like Kyle trying to get him to come up here from Pineville's.
Right.
It's pretty tough, but
sure.
Maybe we can make it happen one of these days.
He'll do it.
RD Ford says that is awesome. And RD's up in, I think he's up in New Hampshire, somewhere up there. RD, tell me again. I know I forgot once again. And Chad says the dude is hilarious. And Dickie says, do you think that a petition should be started so that the fence climber is allowed in Richmond again?
Man, I think so.
Yeah. And the ban be lifted by the county of Henrico. I do plan on being in Martinsville in 42 days.
Yeah.
He was going to go to Martinsville the last time. And I'm like, okay, so you're not banned in every track in Virginia.
Right.
Just at Richmond.
Just that one.
Yeah. And
it's fun. I mean, I remember that. And I was like, why are they throwing a caution? I was with, I was with Greg Biffle then. And Greg was having a pretty decent race, and they threw the caution. I'm like, why are they throwing a caution? And one of my buddies pointed up at the fence. I said, oh my gosh, please don't fall.
I think it seemed like he was running good that
But you
night
think
too.
about it, that stuff, even though it's super frowned upon, didn't Kenseth sign an autograph for a guy at Watkins Glendale in a red flag at one? The guy jumped the fence, leaned in, and got a autograph from Matt during a red flag one time at Watkins.
Okay, yeah, I don't remember that. That's good though. So yeah, and there was one this past week. Scott had posted a video of the guy that was out there doing something on the fence. He was just having a good time. It looked like. So yeah, already.
It was great to see the fans back at the racetrack this weekend, though. I'll say that.
Right, sure. Yeah, Chad Hyder says, camp makes my heart happy. And hold on, I was going to try to find the next comment here. I didn't scroll down somehow. So, RD says, hi guys from the north. And Paul Rodriguez is down in Port St. Lucie, Florida. He says, Dickie, if they have a petition, I'll sign it. Yes. And Chad says, I second that.
I mean, there's got to be like a fan of the year. Surely he won that, right?
I would think so, yeah. I mean, because that pretty much shows that he's all in.
All in.
And I actually had him call in one time, and he's come down through Statesville, but I haven't actually got to meet him face to face. But we're close personal Facebook friends.
That's great.
Yes, and that Rachel says she definitely signed it also. And Dickie says I really like Rutledge.
It's funny, a lot of people in Rutledge's position, or anyone who's a personality, will do things like they won't pay attention to the haters, right? There's always going to be haters. There's always going to be people texting in and saying mean stuff. Yeah. But Rutledge handles every hater with such grace, right? Yeah. It's amazing to see him do that. And like, there's some people that just turn them off, right? And just and don't even look at some of those comments. Rutledge reads almost every comment, and if someone's rude, he handles it with such grace. I don't know if I could. I'm not that guy. I could not do that.
Yeah, I know. I get a little keyed up sometimes with some of them, and I'm just like, okay, how do I respond to this? Yeah. Maybe I just don't need to respond.
Right, right.
And I was talking about one that somebody made a comment to Kyle about something about him only winning 8 races or something, and so he just kind of said something back like, yeah, whatever. It was just kind of like an easygoing.
Think about some other guys that have only won 8 races. Elliott Sadler, maybe Jamie. I don't know how many Jimmy Murray's won. I think it's something like that. But winning 8 races at any level in the Cup is pretty significant, right?
And that was my tweet back to this guy. I was like, okay, so who can say that they first of all raced in NASCAR and won any races? Yeah. So to win 8 races there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
And I think in Rockingham, Kyle almost lapped the entire field. Yeah. In Rockingham.
Yeah. Yeah. And he won. I think he won it 2 years in a row. Yeah. So, Oh, Rachel asked if you got a chance to actually meet Harry Gant.
Oh yeah,
I've met him several times.
Harry
myself.
Gant goes on the Kyle Pater charity ride every year, and usually brings one of his daughters with him, I think. But the Kyle Pater charity ride is like a family. Like once you're in it, once you ride in that one time, you're like always going to be invited back. You're accepted by the group. They all love you. But Harry Gant looks the same that he did. Yeah, back 25 years ago, 30 years ago, than what he does now. He looks, and they call him Handsome Harry. He looks the same.
We actually had a dog, and my wife named him Handsome Harry.
Yeah, did you? Yeah,
because she loved that dog.
Yeah,
and she got to meet Harry. Well, she met him years ago when her dad worked for him back in the old days, and in the 80s, I guess it was. Yeah, and so my wife Tracy and we went out to see a Marty Stewart concert out at Taylorsville High School, I believe. Yeah, and he was there in the crowd. So whenever we were leaving, we caught him at the door and said, and then he was holding my wife's hand. He said, "Oh yeah, I remember, KP, your dad, KP." And so that was cool.
It's funny. You've been in racing longer than I have, but when you
KT, I'm sorry, I don't know what I said.
When you go to the racetrack now, those guys like that don't come around. Like Ricky Rudd went off into the wilderness, right? You don't see him anywhere, but you don't see Harry Gant or those guys going to the racetrack. And sometimes I think some of these young kids who are working in the crew could use a little bit of a history lesson sometimes. Absolutely. Right? Yeah. One time, I'll never forget this time in Darlington. Kyle and I were walking through Darlington, and there was a young kid underneath the car. I forget who it was. I wouldn't want to mention his name anyway, but Pearson walked up. And Kyle loves David Pearson. Thinks he walks on water, right? So the kid stands up and says, excuse me, old timer, or something like kind of cocky, right? Yeah. And Kyle said, "Hey man, do you know who this is?" Yeah, really. And the kid's like, "No idea. I got to get the air pressure or something." Kyle's like, "You need to give me your hard card. You shouldn't be in racing if you don't know who it was."
Really, exactly.
Yeah,
I thought that too, because, when I got into racing, it was like I eat, breathe, sleep, and absolutely loved NASCAR. And I had, since I was a little kid, since I was far back as I could remember, being 5 or 6 years old, when I remembered having a little Matchbox cars and watching the races. Of course, in 1979, Daytona 500 was live on TV for like the first time a live race.
And there's a fight.
And I remember watching that fight because I was a Cale Yarborough fan, so I was like, "Man, get him!" Yeah, Donnie and Cale and
the King
Bobby
won that, right?
Yeah,
the King won that.
Yep, him, and then I think Darrell may have been second. Yeah, I don't know. It was something like that. It was, but it was.
And Kyle won the ARCA race that year. That was Kyle's first win. 1979.
Yeah, about that.
His first race ever. Which is crazy.
Yeah, if I could get Kyle on here sometime, I'm going to have him tell his version of the story of whenever he was a jack man at one point and a tire changer at another. Yeah. Because because I tell that story a lot, but it's not as funny as when he tells it. So
there's a lot of he's got some really good stories.
Oh yeah. We could actually probably have an hour-long conversation with him. I probably have to say, all right, well, it's about might be time to wrap it up. No. So Chad says, I ran the 21 for a reason. Okay, so yeah, the 21 car, of course, the old David Pearson car. But that was, Chad Hatter does the old Iracing, and he's doing very well at it. Hopefully he'll win the points championship. We shall see. R.D. Ford says, small as a thought, as big as a dream. Billy, if you'd like send some information on the Children's Help, our Lions Club is not doing much this year, so however could enter for it in the future years. So for the Lions Club. Yeah, R.D., I'll get you that information. No problem there, and we'll work on that. So Chad says, Petty, Waltrip, and Foyt, that top three from the fight, yes. Petty, Waltrip, and Foyt. That was the top three. Okay. So VJ
Foyt was third then?
I didn't realize that. So yeah, it does seem like I remembered Waltrip being there, but yeah, Foyt. So because I think Buddy Parrott was actually crew chief for Darrell at that point. So Jana says VJ serves campers with bleeding disorders, burn survivors, cancer, cerebral palsy, and craniofacial anomalies. Yeah. And I read all that. So
that's good.
Yeah, and she keeps going with, I don't know if I can read all those, but yeah.
Camp's amazing. You know, it's a place that, man, like I always said before, it lets kids that just feel like kids again, which is awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of them you look at, they're just running around having a good time.
Oh yeah.
And you would never know there was anything wrong with
Never.
them. You're
Not there.
I remember thinking that. I'm like, so are all of these kids, sick or have something?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that kind of covers it. Gastrointestinal diseases, genetic disorders, heart disease, immune, whatever,
Yeah.
kidney diseases, sickle cell and skin disease, spinal bifida.
My sister Leanne volunteered there, and I think you can get on the volunteer list. It's a great place to volunteer and be a part of. If that's the way to give back, they've got the places you stay, the cabins that the counselors stay in are amazing. You know,
yeah.
And I think it's a great experience for anybody.
I know I asked Morgan about that, and she told me there was a screening process, obviously, that you go through, which is, it makes a lot of sense. So that's something I had looked into. And then I get busy with everything else, how that goes. Rachel,
and even when it goes, even for like the Kyle Pediatric charity ride, they have donation centers as they go across the country for the camp too. And there we go.
There we go. We got some outside action going on, unfortunately.
But Morgan does an amazing job with the charity ride and getting out in front of it and getting those donation centers available. I think Chad Coltrane is the president of the camp now, but he goes out and does kind of like a teaser of where they're going to go. But Morgan does such a good job with getting people out to the charity ride. And if anyone's listening, those of you who are listening, and watch Kyle Pediatric Charity Ride website and see where the ride's going. I know they had to cancel this year or postpone this year. Right. But man, they go to some amazing places, and when they stop in a city, they take over, man, and it's so much fun. It's a lot of fun when they go. Yeah.
Very cool. One of these days, if I ever get a bike or ever, maybe I'll.
And I think they have some short runs every now and then here in town after the Charlotte race or something.
Oh, okay.
But but it's funny. You'd be amazed to see on that ride. I struck up a relationship with Herschel Walker 15 years ago, and I was trying to lure Tyson Foods or someone into the world of racing, and Herschel came as a guest. Well, we started talking about motorcycles, and Herschel perked up. And Herschel Walker has been on the ride every year since then.
I thought I'd seen him doing that. Yeah. He seems like a really cool guy.
He's an amazing person.
I saw him. So he was playing for the Kansas City Royals, if I'm not mistaken.
No, Bo Jackson.
I'm sorry. You're right.
Yep.
That was him.
I always get confused with those guys.
I do too.
Yep. Herschel has now, I think he's 3-0 in UFC, if that's so sparks your interest.
Yeah. I was thinking about Bo Jackson. That's been like 20-something years ago. I saw him hit a home run like dead center out of the Tiger Stadium, the old Tiger Stadium.
So strong.
But Herschel was always the infamous running back, right? And the
Georgia Bulldog.
Yes. So, hey, Billy, looking Gary Gazarian.
Yeah, I worked with Gary.
Okay. I thought that name sounded familiar.
Yeah.
It's just, he said, hey, Billy, looking good. Miss working with you back at the Flow days.
Yep. I worked with Gary. He was a service rider with me at Flow Automotive Group. He was a good guy, man.
Yeah. Flow
his son races. His son's into go-karting and is doing really well. But Gary worked, man, I want to say he may have worked in the IndyCar world. I forget. I lost track of him. I need to reconnect with him because he was an awesome guy.
Yeah. So, thanks for tuning in there, Gary. Rachel says, what does Billy miss the most of the way NASCAR was in the past?
That's a great question, because I think what you're going to see now, you're going to see a huge transition of what they've learned during COVID, right, is that you can still put a good show on for the fans in 1 or 2 days. Right?
Like run what you brung now.
Exactly, right? Yep. And they may not, and I'm not speaking for NASCAR, and I have no connection to anybody. What I'm saying is some of these teams and groups have probably figured out that you can probably save money by going 1 or 2 days later and versus going Thursday through Sunday. You think about that. Well, a lot of people don't understand is when you're a 4-car team, right? You've got to get hotel rooms Thursday through Sunday, rental cars, per diem, everything.
Sure.
Right? There's a bunch.
It's very expensive.
When you go in and out on one day, right, you're eliminating a ton of hotels. So now that may trickle down to sponsorship too. I don't know, right?
Yeah.
But what I miss about racing before, for me personally, it was just being around the guys and being around everyone at the racetrack, guys and girls, right? Yeah. I worked with some amazing folks in the marketing department. I had a lot of really great crew guys. I was pretty close with a lot of the crew guys. And it's funny because it always seemed like people would start at the petties and then branch out and go somewhere else. So after 1 or 2 years there, you go and you know 10 people at each different team. So
right, yes.
A lot of racket outside.
Yeah, they don't have, I don't think they work or something. They just don't have anything else to do. So Dickie Dennis says, thank you, WAME. Yes, thank you, WAME. This is the WAME Randy Marine studio here. And so we broadcast out of here every morning.
What a great studio, too.
Yeah, and I was telling Billy that we have live music here on Thursdays and Fridays. And Kiki comes out and brings the giggles.
Kiki and Giggles. I got a picture of Giggles earlier.
Yep. And then we have our Wednesday night show. We have a Piedmont Folkways radio show where we have mostly like bluegrass type music and folk and kind of like the roots of music right here in the studio. And so, it's good stuff. And Billy Buck Morning Show from 6 to 10 every morning. You can check them out on WAMEradio.com. So you can tell I've said that on the radio quite a few times.
Never one time.
Yeah, so Rachel says, wow, that's amazing how many helps the VJ helps. Yes, it is. And Bob Patterson says, Richard Petty, then Kyle, why I loved NASCAR enough to try to get a job of any kind on their team. Did not make it to Petty Enterprises, lucky enough to get to Sabco. Will always root for the Petties. There you go. Very good, Bob Patterson. And like he was one of the weekend guys that would come in, like with Big John Yook and a lot of the guys that were coming in. And Jana says you can also have donations made in memory of, in honor of a family as well. And Paul says, wow, Jana VJ is really a great place for these kids. Dickie Dennis, the fence climber, says Route 5 of the Richmond into Williamsburg board the Jamestown Ferry and take Route 10 back to Richmond. Okay, we're getting directions now. So, Dickie Dennis says, run what you brung. That's pretty much it. Kind of like the old local dirt tracks, short tracks.
And I think
show up and race.
In 2021 or 2022, I forget where they're going to do it. They're rolling out the new car, right? And the new car is going to change things too, and it's going to change things industry wide. You've got fabricators and painters and all those guys that NASCAR, I think, is providing a lot of that stuff anymore.
Right.
It's going to change the whole aspect. But they're if you notice, they're letting a lot of these younger kids test the new car that's coming out. I think Cole Custer tested it. I think Austin Dillon tested it. They're letting the younger guys test it because it's probably going to be with them longer than it is a Kevin Harvick or some of those guys, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess they want them to enjoy it more and know more about it. So Scott Trevison, Beer Man, says we need to get Kyle Petty on Piedmont Folkway Show. Yeah, because he could play, pick and sing.
Oh, man, can he sing.
He's
got so many great songs.
We've actually talked about getting him up here with, is it David Childress?
Yeah, David. And they play all over the place.
Yeah. So
and they play I'm telling you, for as many thousands of miles that I've ridden with Kyle in an airplane, and I've had to listen to him write songs and play songs on an airplane.
Sure.
He doesn't go anywhere without his guitar. And he is, I mean, and listen, he's got 2 new babies now, so he's got new inspiration to sing and write about those 2 guys. Right.
Yes,
and he's as happy as I've probably ever seen him.
Yeah.
So it's really good to see that happiness in him. And he wrote some funny songs when I was with him, and he wrote some sad songs when I was with him.
Sure.
And but man, he's a talented guy. I think at one point Diamond Rio had played at Talladega for the bus lot, for the owner lot, and I think he can confirm this. The guitarist or the bass player for Diamond Rio was his guitarist for his band when he sang Old King Richard and all those other ones.
Oh, okay, very cool. And that was in the studio, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah. I bet they played that song. One More Day with You would have been a good one for them.
Oh yeah.
To kind of like, they played that a lot whenever Earnhardt passed away, I know.
Yep.
Just to spend one more day with you.
Yep.
And hey, Kathy Cash, coming in to hang out with us. Chad says, Hamm, I'm thinking a heck of a barn party next year. All right, let's do it. Thanks, Jen, for bringing that, VJ. So Kyle and Presley Barker. Yeah, Presley Barker, who is a local. He's from Trap Hill, North Carolina. He's 14-year-old phenom.
Really?
I don't know if he's getting close to 15, but I'll have to send you some of the videos I have of him playing in our WME studio. Just an amazing guitar player. I mean, he picks just like.
How old is he? 15?
Yes. Oh, I don't think he's quite 15 yet. He may have just turned 15, but he was 14 last. Presley Barker, is he 15 yet? I think he's getting close, but maybe pretty close. Has Billy tried iRacing, and what does he think about it? Its ability of interest in the new race fans.
So listen, I think so. I don't know if you've noticed. There's so many of these different simulator setups that are coming out from. So I've got this little steering wheel for my son Breck that he uses, and he races NASCAR heat, and it's amazing the difference going from controller to. But we don't have the type of simulators they have. I was looking at my buddy Chase Briscoe's simulator set up the other day, and it literally moves, right? So it gets the feeling of turning and things like that. So simulators are going from where these guys are building them out of PVC pipe and a race seat to now with hydraulics and all this other stuff.
Sure.
It's different. I've not tried it. I would like to try it, but I don't know how long I would last, right?
They have one of those up in Bristol, up in the man cave. And my wife tried it, but I was like, well, I'm going to let her do it instead of me doing it too.
Well, see, what I would be, like, I would want to do it by myself. I couldn't do it like at a trade show or something, because if I go in there and sit down and in fact, I tried it one time. Kyle was doing a trade show at SEMA. I think we were doing a SEMA appearance, and there was a little, not a real simulator, but something that you could compete against the fans. And I got like last place. And I can't represent like that. That was horrible. Right? I actually love racing games. They're fun. My wife would not let me play them as much, but I do like them.
I did the one at the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Thanks to Rachel Rodman. She got me in, and I was like the guest for the night to talk a race party viewing thing.
Cool.
I brought some of my fire suits and postcards and things like that.
Yeah.
And and we got to go and ride and race in the simulator, but it's a lot harder doing it. But my first experience with the iRacing was sitting at my old computer, which is like ancient, and I had a steering wheel and I had the gas brake, whatever. And I'm sitting there, and it's like you're turning, and then the computer's like chop, chop, chop,
right,
chop.
Right.
Like, so finally I was just like, you know what, it's not even worth it.
Tony Stewart just came out with a new game. It involved legend cars, I think big block modifieds, and maybe late models. I don't know, but it's a new game that I really want to get bad, because I really want to get my son into some Bandolero stuff or some legend cars at some point. Yeah. But those legend cars are really cool. We'd like to go out to the racetrack in Charlotte and watch those every now and then.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it seems like I remember Logano racing when I was a jackman back then. It seems like he was just a kid racing, because I remember the name kind of.
But that iRacing, you think, William Byron made a big name for himself from iRacing, right? Right. And I don't know if anyone knows this, but Dale Jr. was a big iRacer, not iRacer, a simulator guy early on, and when no one was doing it, right? And that's how he and TJ Majors, who was his spotter for so long, TJ is actually from my area originally, like Celeron, New York, is where he's from. But TJ was really involved with that simulator stuff, but where they've come from there to now, I mean, with every sport, like they have golf simulators. I saw a baseball simulator the other day that people can hit into a screen, but technology today is insane. I don't know how well I would do with iRacing. I would like to try. I actually have a membership, a 12-month membership sitting in my house, but I don't dare activate it. Yeah. Well, they've actually now they're playing it on the PlayStation 4. Yeah. And that's what they can play that online too. Right. Right. So, and I know they're coming out with a PlayStation 5 at some point. And listen, sure. Do you as a racer? I can't answer this. I'm asking anyone. As a racer, right? Do you become better by just looking at your marks, your mark in the racetrack, or where you need to hit? Because a lot of racers race with their butt sometimes, where they can feel the car, right? Whether it's getting out or something. Seat of the pants feel. Right. And some like some of them seem to feel like they like it better like that. But listen, the technology of this iRacing today is so real. I think one of the things that it does is it increases your what do you call it? Your speed of your hand-eye coordination and all that kind of stuff. Just like, so so you get in a race car and you're going 200 mile an hour, so your hand-eye coordination can be quicker. I realized that with Kyle one time where, and I noticed it myself driving 70 miles an hour down the highway, but we were racing somewhere and they flew a caution, and it was I think it was Michigan, and Kyle saw a piece of metal on the track, and I was like, how do you see that at 200 miles an hour? He goes, it's only been sitting there for 6 dang laps, he said, or something like that. Obviously didn't use dang, but, but it was, and I thought to myself, how do you see that at 200 miles an hour? Yeah. Well, maybe
you know, maybe he threw it out.
Listen, they've been known, right?
Oh, absolutely.
They've
Yes.
been known.
We sure could use a caution.
I know. Yep.
Oh my gosh. So, yeah. All right. So if y'all have any questions, throw them out here. Did you see Kyle Larson coming back to NASCAR? Dickie, we were talking about that earlier. We were curious to know where he's going to end up.
I think Kyle Larson does make it back to NASCAR.
Yeah, I do
probably
too.
soon, right? And the fact of the matter is he's an incredible talent. Kyle Larson can literally drive anything. I don't know if you saw him he jumped in a Longhorn chassis late model dirt car and was 2 straightaways ahead of everybody. He was flying.
Yeah.
And he'd been running those sprint cars and killing everybody in those too. But Kyle Larson is a I'll say this. I think that he obviously made a mistake, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's gone to training. Is it going to be a hard sell in NASCAR for sponsorship? I don't know. You know, a lot of our drivers in the past have done some really bad things and they still sold them.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
I don't know if that's going to be a factor. I think performance is going to he's can drive anything. So he'll drive another race car. Kyle Larson's a good person. He's a good guy.
Yeah. Yep. There you go. You were talking about Chase Briscoe earlier.
Yep.
I actually had him call in to our sports recap show one evening before.
Great kid.
Yeah. So I still have his.
Hey,
number.
shout out
Maybe
to
I can-
Chase's dad, Kevin. Kevin just had a stint put into. He had some issues and he's back to normal now, thank God. But he's a great guy.
They say sometimes after you get those things, there's like a different person.
Yeah.
So hopefully that'll work out good for him. So Chad says, I appreciate the being able to find reference points on Sims, but I prefer filling the 4 corners in a go-kart to find speed. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. So if y'all have any more questions, throw them out here now because we're going to wrap it up here in just a second. But be sure to check out my website, dhammiam.com. Check out WAMEradio.com and check out the Piedmont Folkways radio show here on Wednesday night. It's a great time. I don't think you'll be disappointed at all. We're going to have some great music coming up here. We've actually got
They got the chairs in here, social distance, so you're safe to come in here and hang out.
yes, that's right. And Chad Hodder says, thanks, Billy. Rachel says you were doing great, Chad, for getting up front. Yes, with his e-racing stuff. So RD Ford, awesome, Chad, with the 21. Thank you for your informational. Very nice to listen to you, Billy Race. Thank you, David and Tracy, for having the show. Night all. Stay safe. And yes, thank you all so much for tuning in. And we'll be back next Monday night. I'm sure I'll have another guest by then. And maybe one of these days we can get Kyle Petty up here.
He'll get here.
Get in here.
We'll get him up here and talk about some funny things.
Yes, and maybe even Rutledge Wood.
I can have for sure.
That would be cool. And don't forget to hit that thumbs up. And if you got any more questions, any comments, put them down below after the video ends, and I will certainly go back on there and answer them. And Billy will go on there and answer them as well.
I will, for sure.
So, but thank y'all so much for tuning in, and we will see y'all next Monday at 7:30 for Racing Roots with Hamm. Good night.
Thanks, guys.
There we go.